I mean, I was saying when I was muted, I didn't have the mic set up, but I was talking about how 3.0 conflict was always driven by some sort of like interpersonal stuff between characters, and in 4.0 it's sanitized because most people overly fear community toxicity, which, community toxicity was a byproduct of invested viewers, but now we have the opposite. I feel like where the people who watch now are really just in it for the shootouts, and like the RP community is dying as a whole because
that's so true.
Like,
what was the last storyline you actually saw that wasn't involving Cap or Peppo?
Yeah. 2 million to end a war, yada yada, don't want to pay war, extends. I mean, Senor, that's a choice. Again, like when I talked to in character about the choice, we had the choice to end a war. Like, not being willing to pay out 2 million is just a case of continuing the war until like that, unless Hydra was an exception because we didn't win any fights, and once the RPGs came out, we were never going to win fights. So we paid the 2 million, but we also try to steal meth lab. So that's like a choice for us, right? At the end of the day, like that type of conflict is driven by character choices, whereas ammunition crates and cargoes aren't driven by character choices. They're driven by mechanics. And that's where I think 4.0 kind of loses its longevity. Like, we didn't have to pay the 2 million. We could have just extended things until the price came down. Like, a lot of people forget that in the first Hydra war, where Kyber paid out $1 million, to my knowledge, we were going to get an offer for 500k to end it, which was the number I'd told Kyber like 2-3 days prior to that I was aiming for to end the war, which would have been a reasonable amount considering at the time the accepted like standard for that type of thing was about 200-300k. So an offer for 500k was pending. Basically, we didn't know that at the time, but like paying out the 1 million, the strategy was going to work. Like, we continue the war as much as it sucks for us, a character choice, and like until the negotiation is not, back breaking.
I mean, I won't lie, piggybacking off of that though, I kind of look back on that sort of stuff and kind of think we were fucking morons, because it's pretty much just NVL at that point. If you lose every fight non-stop, like, you should pay.
But in the first Hydra war, we weren't losing every fight. The second one we did once the RPGs came out.
No, the first one was the one where it was like 20 fucking Hydra fucking storms versus one Rust maybe win. That's the one that's the one where I wasn't in it and I had COVID.
Yeah, but right before we had the negotiations, like the last 2-3 fights had been even. So in our logic, like, yeah, I get your point, but as I've always taken the opinion that like if every war has to be fought as this 6v6 convoy stuff, and like you look at how and certain people, I'm not going to say names, but certain people will, there's no permas in the city and they make that blatantly clear. Like, you have to kind of, if that rule applies to everyone, then it needs to just be, in my opinion, enforced by the server that you have to roll for perma, even if it's a really low percentage every time you go down in a conflict. Because otherwise, everyone should just play around the concept that no one is going to perma, because otherwise it's just selectively kind of used by groups. If that makes sense. Like, either it has to be a rule for everyone or a rule for no one. Can't hear phantoms. I can't give a specific example because it's like obviously there's specific people involved with what I'm referencing, but
yeah, well, you don't want to just call people out.
Yeah, but the whole, it's MVL argument, I get what you're saying. But like that a standard would have to be applied to every group, and that was never the case in 3.0.
I mean, I'm not saying ban people for it. I'm not saying that's understand that way. I'm just saying it makes me think of the way I thought about it fucking stupid, because realistically, like, if you have a real chance of dying, which is pretty much guaranteed, like, because you're getting shot down, like, constantly, you know what I mean? You should pay the end that you, that's, you're valuing your life, but the value of it's millions.
Yeah, but I can also understand the counterpoint of that. Like, at that point, what's the stopping a group also abusing the fact that you can't die? And then if you offer to pay 500k, which is everything you have, and they're like, no, we want 2 million, then they'll just keep shooting you down until you. The ceiling is never the ceiling is infinite at that point of what they could ask for.
I mean, it's definitely a two-way street.
Yeah, it has to be. That's why the demands to end wars should always be reasonable, or should have some sort of out, like what we do with Saints with the cooking of the meth. It doesn't involve like completely breaking a gang. You're right. Like you can pay out of any war. Like it's always a choice to continue a conflict. Like groups that are like, oh, we're always on the bad side of a war or whatever else. It's like you could choose to roll over on every single war. It just means you'll probably have more conflicts in the future that you'll have to pay out on before it gets to war. And to be honest, we like you look at by the numbers, like Rust back in the day, if that's the example, like GG and Hydra were the two groups that could consistently take it to us, but every other group, like we were pretty much on top of. So in terms of like when we had conflict with them, so that was a very balanced approach to the roleplay, right? We weren't just getting dogged on by the entire city, like say, Saints or Goons were at the time. It just so happens that we tended to beef with those two groups more often.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed, like, even though we got like kind of dicked around with the GG and Hydra conflicts, like there was no winning those for us. Especially the early ones. I still enjoyed the RP behind them. Like I make jokes about Future Hendrix all the time, but I do actually enjoy like the conflicts on that side of things. I didn't find them toxic in character in any way. Like sure, the communities, like
Yeah, it's always going to be the case, though.
yeah,
I mean, I've said it many times. I'll say it again, bro. RP viewers that get invested in gangs and thinks a sports team are fucking retarded, bro. Like, go outside.
yeah. I think getting invested in the outcome of fights and stuff is really stupid from a viewer point of view. But I can understand getting invested in like a gang storyline to the point that you're like super parasocial about the gang.
Calling us toxic, Matthias? All you want to see is me get grief, motherfucker. What you talking about? Nah, bro. But like, I don't know. Viewers are fucking freaks a lot of the time when it comes to conflict.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm so over it to the point I will just like call them fucking retards nonstop now. I don't care. Like I'm so over it. Like I will call it to them until they realize what they're doing is fucking like such weird delusional parasocial behavior. You know what I mean? Like I have if you just allow people to believe things are okay, they're always going to believe it and they're going to feel justified in what they do. You have to call it out and call them like, you need to just berate them until they realize what they're doing is fucking idiotic.
Yeah. I mean, I've always taken a very like hands-off approach to like the people who out of GTA talk and stuff have seen it in the past. Like, I think streamers in general are too involved in the chatters' opinions of their characters and whatnot across like NoPixel as a whole, roleplay as a whole. Like, there's going to be negative opinions of characters in every community, and in fact, if roleplay is going to flourish and people are going to follow individual groups, and you look at TV and media and movies as the benchmark, people get parasocial over characters they can't even interact with, like TV shows and whatnot. So with characters that they can actually interact with, or they deem that they think they can interact with, then like the level of emotional investment is kind of expected. Just the only thing that needs to be like sharply tapped on by streamers, and should be, is people caring about like the streamer's performance of the character, if that makes sense. So like in war or conflict or whatever, like getting angry at streamers because of their mechanical performance or like their choices is really fucking stupid. Like it makes no sense. Like you can talk about that with other chatters in private meta talks and whatever else. Like that's expected and it happens everywhere with traditional media. But going into a streamer's chat to berate them for character choices or to call them dog shit because they didn't win a gunfight, or that they're killing the gang, yada yada, like that type of like investment is so unnecessary. Because like having an opinion on a character is one thing, having an opinion on the streamer behind the character is another entirely. Phantoms gets absolutely cooked on record. Yeah, but it's not Phantoms that you're cooking. Like they mostly shit on Mac, which whether they're right or wrong, like some of their points are valid, some of them are completely crap. But as long as they continue to criticize Mac and not Phantoms or like Phantom's choices as a character, then they're within their rights to do so, because realistically,
That's the thing.
we're
I understand why people. I'm sorry to cut off, but I understand why people play flawed characters. Like obviously, like Max supposed to be hot headed, also dumb as fuck, so he does stupid shit. You know, a very what's the word I'm looking for? A very easy character you could talk shit about or make comments on why the fuck would you ever do this. You know what I mean? But that's literally the point of it. Like you shouldn't. Our peers shouldn't be trying to play a quote unquote perfect character. Your characters should have flaws. That should be a very real part of it.
yeah. I mean, viewers are very engaged with the success of their groups, and and that's within. I still think it's within their rights. Like, there's going to be viewers that don't understand like the point behind a character, or like especially if they only watch one point of view in roleplay, which is extremely common these days. To only watch one group or maybe two groups. So I think the biggest thing that viewers probably should look at is learning to look at things from like understand that there's usually two POVs to something. These aren't structured storylines. People are just improvising for the most part, and whenever there is something that a viewer would deem as something that they think shouldn't have taken place, consider it that there's probably some element from the other side that makes it misunderstanding or just a misalignment of how they view the role play. It's not always malicious. In fact, most of the time it's not malicious.